Okay, we're reading chapter 3 now of Army Brats. I can do that, Rosie exclaimed before Dad could take all the silverware out of the box. He handed over to her. Rosie and Dad were in the kitchen unpacking while Mom, Tom, and Charlotte were out doing boring grocery shopping. Rosie liked helping unpack. She liked having time alone with Dad, and she really liked being in charge of things, especially things that were fun like stacking up the knives and forks in the red plastic holder. Rosie had the holder in one hand, and now that she had the silverware, she was ready. She put the holder into a drawer, but it wouldn't go in right. She pushed a little harder. Hang on, sweetie, Dad said. He was standing on the other side of the wooden island, putting away plates. Rosie knew she could do it herself if he'd just give her a chance. She needed to get the corner in. She began using both hands to wedge the holder inside the drawer. Rosie, it doesn't fit in that drawer, Dad said. He sounded tired, even though it wasn't even dinner time. Let's try a different one. He was right. Rosie pulled at the holder, but now it was jammed. She tugged harder, and suddenly the whole drawer came flying out with a loud splintering crack. Rosie nearly toppled over backward, but Cupcake, who had been lying on the floor, jumped behind her, keeping Rosie upright. Thanks, Cupcake, Rosie told the dog, who wagged her short tail at the praise. Dad, this drawer isn't high quality. That's what Mom had said in their last house when a shelf for books caved in. But Dad just frowned. Rosie, I'm not sure the quality of the drawer is the problem, he said. Uh-oh, that meant the problem was Rosie. Next time, maybe you can be more patient, he added. Rosie had a lot of trouble with patience. What was the point of doing things slowly? But she hated that. She disappointed Dad. Sorry, she said. I'll try patience next time. She didn't promise because she never made a promise she couldn't keep. But Mom and Dad said trying was important, and sure enough, Dad smiled at her. Why don't you let me put the silverware holder in the drawer and then hand you the things to put away? He asked. Rosie sounded a lot like Dad being in charge. Rosie sounded a lot like Dad being in charge and not Rosie. I'm sorry, that sounded a lot like Dad being in charge and not Rosie. Yay, yay, yay. But I want to do it, Rosie pleaded. Actually, Dad said, taking the drawer and holder from her, I have an idea. Why don't you and Cupcake go explore the neighborhood a bit? Maybe see if you can make some friends. Rosie forgot all about the drawer. We can go just us, she asked, not believing something so exciting could be true. We get to have some new rules here on the post, because things are very safe here. Because the army is watching us, Rosie asked. Kind of, Dad said. They're careful about who gets on post. Plus, people here watch out for each other. Right, Rosie said, remembering that Mom had talked about this when they arrived. I know all about that. Okay, see you later. She was ready to go, but Dad held up a hand. Wait, I need to tell you the boundaries, he said. Rosie sagged. Sure, the boundaries would ruin everything. You can go all the way around our block, Dad said. No crossing streets, but you'll still see a lot of the residential neighborhood. Roger that, Rosie said, and marched to the front door following Cupcake. I'll bet you'll run into some kids your age, Dad said, coming up and leaning against the door jamb as Rosie snapped on Cupcake's leash, which would be a good opportunity to make friends. Remember what the counselor said about trying to listen to others and to use kindness, not yelling. Rosie's mouth pinched up at that. Rosie's mouth pinched up at that. Everyone was worried about her making friends, everyone but Rosie. She had her siblings, she had Cupcake, and she had Mom and Dad. That was more than enough. Maybe kids in her class never wanted to sit with her at lunch or play with her at recess, but Rosie didn't need them anyway. She liked racing around the schoolyard and climbing up the jungle gym by herself. It was more fun without other kids messing everything up with their bad ideas and complaining when she was in charge. I'll look for friends, Rosie said, and began to grin. Friends for Cupcake. I think she's lonely. Dad's smile slipped away like soap suds going down the drain. I don't think she's the only one who's lonely, he said. Right, Rosie agreed. There's probably another lonely dog out there right now waiting for a friend just like Cupcake. Dad sighed. Okay, well, have fun, he said, then headed back toward the kitchen. We get to explore, Rosie told Cupcake, patting the dog on the back of her neck, where her fur was thick and satiny. But you have to listen very carefully to my rules when we go out. I'll be in charge, he said. Cupcake looked up agreeably as Rosie double-checked that the leash was secure. One of the many wonderful things about Cupcake was that she never minded when Rosie was in charge. In fact, unless she saw a squirrel to chase, she seemed to like it best when Rosie made all the decisions. Rosie led Cupcake around the boxes stacked up on the porch, then down the steps to the wide sidewalk. The sun was bright, and Rosie saw that some of their new neighbors were doing things like mowing their lawns and weeding flower beds. As she considered which way to go, she took a moment to inspect the sidewalk conditions. Their block in Pennsylvania had a big crack right in front of their house. And if you biked over too fast, your wheel could swerve and you could crash. Rosie had always hated that crack and was pleased to see that the sidewalk pavement here was smooth. "We'll go this way," Rosie announced to Cupcake, "and find you a friend." Cupcake pranced happily at her side, clearly excited to make friends. The scent of fresh cut grass perfumed the air as Rosie and Cupcake made their way around the block. "Hi there," a woman said. She was pulling up weeds next to her mailbox and wore a floppy straw hat that reminded Rosie of going to the beach. "Welcome to Fort Patrick," she said. She had a southern accent that made her words sound like music. "Thanks, ma'am," Rosie said. "I'm Rosie, and this is Cupcake." "I'm Ms. Dunbar," the woman said with a smile. Rosie liked how she didn't seem worried about the dirt all over her hands and clothes. "Are you checking out the neighborhood?" she asked. Rosie nodded. "Yes, and we're looking for friends too. There's a lovely boy named Victor who's about your age," Miss Dunbar said. "He lives in a house across from yours." "No, not a friend for me," Rosie said. "For Cupcake." "I see," she said. "Well, good luck." "Thanks," Rosie said. Miss Dunbar was way friendlier than grumpy old Mr. Jarvis, who had lived next door in their old neighborhood. He was always calling Dad to say that Rosie and her siblings were yelling too loud or riding their bikes too fast. But so far, everyone here at Fort Patrick was nice. Just then, Cupcake began to tug on the leash. They had reached the corner, and in the distance, Rosie could see the central plaza with the flagpole and the soldier training area beyond. "Cupcake, no, we can't go any further," she said. "That's the rule. We need to stop here." Sometimes dogs didn't understand about rules, so you had to say it twice. But then Rosie realized Cupcake was trying to sniff the big leafy bush that was below the signpost for Washington Street. "What's in there, Cupcake?" Rosie asked, worried it might be an escaped prisoner or maybe a wolf that snuck on post, waiting to find someone just the right size to gobble up. But after a moment, a black snout popped out, followed by the rest of a big German shepherd, who walked right up to Cupcake to say hello. Dogs didn't talk in people words, of course. Everyone knew that, but Mom had explained that they say hello by sniffing, and it seemed to be a very nice hello from the way both dogs were wagging their tails. "Cupcake, you found a friend," Rosie said happily, as the two dogs began to romp. But then Rosie heard someone running toward them and shouting, "Hey, get away from that dog!" But then Rosie turned to see a woman in a blue shirt holding a leash in one hand. She was glowering as she raced up and clipped the German shepherd to the leash, pulling him away from Cupcake. "No," the woman snapped at Cupcake's new friend. When she turned to Rosie, her expression was angry, really angry. "I told you to stay away from this dog," she scowled. Her voice was so harsh, Cupcake pressed against Rosie's leg. Rosie was bewildered. "I know about dogs, ma'am," she said. "This dog wagged his tail so I could tell he was friendly, and he wants to be friends with my dog Cupcake. They should have play dates." "This dog is off limits," the woman said sharply. Then she jerked at the German shepherd's leash, nearly dragging the dog down the sidewalk. So it turned out that not everyone at Fort Patrick was nice after all. "The lady was awful," Rosie told Cupcake as she stared after them, "and I don't understand why she wouldn't let that dog play with you." The worst part of the whole thing was that it had upset Cupcake. Her tail had drooped, and her little folded ears were wilted, not perked up and happy like they usually were. Clearly, she was miserable at the loss of her friend. Rosie felt a surge of determination. "Don't worry, Cupcake," she reassured the dog. "We'll find your friend. Again, I promise." And she would. Rosie never made a promise she couldn't keep. And now we're on chapter 4, so we'll stop here. It's getting interesting, isn't it?